In the early 2000s, one name was synonymous with mobile phones: Nokia. Its devices were everywhere, in the pockets of teenagers, the hands of executives, and on every street corner across the globe. Nokia wasn't just a brand, it was a cultural phenomenon, an engineering marvel, and a symbol of Finnish innovation. It seemed invincible, a titan that commanded over half of the world's mobile market. Yet, within a decade, this global empire would crumble, leaving behind a legacy of what-ifs and a cautionary tale for the ages. How did the world's most dominant phone maker lose its grip on the future? To understand Nokia's fall, one must first appreciate its extraordinary ascent. The company's roots stretch back to 1865, born from a humble paper mill on the banks of the Tamerkoski River in Finland. Over the next century, it diversified dramatically, venturing into rubber products like tires and boots, then cables and electronics. This relentless adaptation, moving from paper to power cables, was a hallmark of Nokia's early success, setting a precedent for reinvention that would ironically fail it in its later years. It was a company constantly seeking the next big wave. In the 1960s, Nokia's electronics division began experimenting with telecommunications, a nascent field brimming with potential. This led to the development of early car phones and, critically, a foray into the emerging cellular standards. By the 1980s, the Nordic Mobile Telephone (NMT) standard, the world's first international cellular network, propelled Nokia into the mobile phone business. Then came GSM, a digital standard that would truly democratize mobile communication. Nokia embraced it wholeheartedly, understanding its global implications, and positioning itself for an unprecedented surge. By the late 1990s, Nokia's gamble on mobile telephony paid off spectacularly. The company's design philosophy, robust hardware, and user-friendly interfaces resonated globally. Their devices were reliable, stylish, and accessible. In 1998, Nokia surpassed Motorola to become the world's largest mobile phone manufacturer, a title it would hold for over a decade. Its global manufacturing and distribution network was unparalleled, allowing it to penetrate markets from bustling megacities to remote villages. The world was truly in Nokia's hands, or rather, in its customers' pockets. The year 2000 saw the release of perhaps Nokia's most iconic device, the Nokia 3310. It became a legend for its near indestructibility, its long battery life, and its addictive game, Snake. This was the era of the feature phone, where simplicity, reliability, and basic communication were paramount. The 3310 sold millions, cementing Nokia's image as a brand built on trust and quality. At a time when phones were tools, not sophisticated computers, Nokia understood its users perfectly, delivering exactly what they needed with unwavering consistency and a touch of fun. By 2000, Nokia's influence stretched far beyond just phones. Its market capitalization soared to an astonishing €210 billion, accounting for a staggering 4% of Finland's entire GDP. Nokia was an innovation hub, attracting top global talent and investing heavily in R&D. It was a beacon of progress, a symbol of national pride, and a financial powerhouse. The company was actively exploring future technologies, including early internet-connected devices, seemingly anticipating the next paradigm shift. It truly felt like Nokia was untouchable, operating from a position of immense strength and vision. Even at its peak, Nokia understood that mobile phones were evolving. In 2005, it launched the Series, a line of multimedia computers designed to bridge the gap between phones and portable entertainment devices. The N95, released in 2007, was a technical marvel, featuring GPS, a 5-megapixel camera, and web browsing. It was Nokia's answer to convergence, packed with features. However, its Symbian operating system, designed for simpler feature phones, was becoming clunky and difficult to navigate. This powerful hardware was hampered by an outdated software experience, a critical flaw that would soon be brutally exposed. While Nokia enjoyed its market dominance, a seismic shift was brewing thousands of miles away in Cupertino, California. In 2004, Apple initiated Project Purple, a top-secret endeavor to create a revolutionary mobile device. Steve Jobs, Apple's visionary CEO, had tasked his teams with rethinking the very concept of a phone, away from physical buttons and towards a touch-centric interface. This wasn't merely about improving an existing product, it was about inventing an entirely new category, one that Nokia, despite its vast resources and innovation, failed to fully anticipate in its true disruptive potential. January 9, 2007. Steve Jobs took the stage, proclaiming, "Today, Apple is going to reinvent the phone." He unveiled the iPhone, a device with no physical keyboard, a multi-touch interface, and a powerful software experience. The world watched in awe. Nokia's chairman, Jorma Ollila, famously dismissed it, stating, "We don't see that as a threat." He considered it a niche product, too expensive, lacking critical features for the mass market. At that moment, Nokia held 49.4% of the global mobile phone market. Yet, its leadership's blindness to the iPhone's true paradigm-shifting nature would prove fatal. Nokia's Achilles heel was its reliance on Symbian, an operating system it largely controlled. While once revolutionary, Symbian became a fragmented, clunky, and developer-unfriendly platform. Building applications for it was a nightmare. While Apple offered a unified, intuitive App Store, Nokia struggled to attract developers to its complex ecosystem. Internal politics and a deeply entrenched corporate culture prevented Nokia from moving decisively towards a modern OS. They simply couldn't pivot fast enough, holding on to Symbian even as its limitations became glaringly obvious to the rest of the world. The iPhone was not the only challenger. In 2005, Google quietly acquired Android Incorporated, a small startup developing a Linux-based mobile operating system. Unlike Apple's closed ecosystem, Android was designed to be open and free, attracting a multitude of hardware manufacturers. Nokia largely ignored this burgeoning threat, focused on its own internal Symbian struggles and experimental projects. While Nokia was busy fighting internal battles, Android was gaining momentum, preparing to arm a new generation of competitors with a powerful, flexible, and free alternative to Symbian and even iOS. Another critical miscalculation. Realizing Symbian was doomed, Nokia desperately tried to develop a modern alternative, MeeGo, a Linux-based OS. The N9, a beautiful phone running MeeGo, was released in 2011 to critical acclaim. It offered a slick, gesture-based interface years ahead of its time. But internal divisions and conflicting strategies plagued MeeGo. Just as it was gaining traction, CEO Stephen Elop abruptly announced a partnership with Microsoft, effectively killing MeeGo before it had a chance to flourish. This decision alienated loyal developers and customers, marking one of Nokia's most tragic strategic blunders. Nokia's leadership faced immense pressure. Olli-Pekka Kalasvuo, CEO from 2006 to 2010, was criticized for failing to recognize the smartphone revolution's urgency and for his slow, indecisive actions. In 2010, Stephen Elop, a former Microsoft executive, was brought in as CEO, signaling a desperate plea for change. Elop inherited a company in turmoil, paralyzed by internal politics and facing an existential threat. His arrival marked a dramatic shift in strategy, but whether it was the right shift, or merely an acceleration towards the inevitable, remains a subject of intense debate. Soon after taking charge, Stephen Elop sent an internal memo to all Nokia employees, famously declaring the company was standing on a burning platform. He vividly described how Nokia was falling behind, losing market share to competitors like Apple and Android, and that radical change was necessary for survival. The memo was a blunt assessment of Nokia's dire situation, an attempt to galvanize a workforce resistant to change. It was a dramatic, unprecedented move, setting the stage for one of the most controversial decisions in Nokia's history, forging an alliance with Microsoft. In February 2011, Elop announced Nokia would abandon its own operating systems, Symbian and MeeGo, and partner exclusively with Microsoft to adopt Windows Phone as its primary smartphone platform. This was a colossal gamble. Nokia hoped Microsoft's software expertise and financial might would provide a lifeline. But Windows Phone, despite its elegant interface, struggled to gain developer support and user adoption. It was a distant third in a two-horse race, and Nokia's late entry into this struggling ecosystem proved disastrous. This all-or-nothing bet would ultimately seal Nokia's fate. The switch to Windows Phone did little to stem the bleeding. Consumers were firmly entrenched in iOS and Android ecosystems, and Windows Phone failed to attract them. By 2012, Nokia lost its long-held position as the world's #1 mobile phone manufacturer to Samsung, which had fully embraced Android. Its market share plummeted from nearly 50% to single digits in just a few short years. The mighty Nokia, once the epitome of mobile innovation and global reach, was now a struggling player, fighting for relevance in a market it once dominated effortlessly. The financial strain became unbearable. In September 2013, it was announced that Microsoft would acquire Nokia's Devices and Services division for approximately $7.2 billion. This deal transferred Nokia's mobile phone business, including its factories, patents, and thousands of employees, to Microsoft. It was a somber day for Finland, marking the effective end of an era. The company that had defined mobile communication for decades was selling off its crown jewel, a stark illustration of how quickly market leadership can erode in the face of disruptive innovation. Post-acquisition, Microsoft created Microsoft Mobile to carry on the Nokia phone legacy. However, it too struggled. The Lumia brand, initially promising, failed to gain significant traction. Microsoft eventually wrote off billions from the acquisition and drastically scaled back its mobile ambitions. The iconic Nokia name, for a time, disappeared from new smartphones, becoming a brand associated with feature phones or historical nostalgia. The Grand Alliance, conceived to save Nokia, ultimately led to the complete dissolution of its once mighty phone division, a tragic end for a once great innovator. The question lingers, could Nokia have survived the smartphone revolution? Many argue yes. Had Nokia embraced Android earlier, leveraging its unparalleled hardware and distribution, it could have been a formidable competitor to Samsung. Had it unified its software efforts around MeeGo with conviction, it might have carved out a niche as a premium alternative. But a combination of corporate inertia, fragmented strategy, and an underestimation of software's supremacy proved to be its undoing. The path wasn't entirely clear, but options existed beyond the fateful Microsoft embrace. Nokia's fall offers crucial lessons for any business in a rapidly evolving market. First, never underestimate the power of software and ecosystem. Hardware alone is not enough. Second, agility and speed are paramount. Prolonged internal debates and indecision are deadly. Third, listen to your customers and anticipate their future needs, even if they challenge your established success. Nokia's story isn't just about a company, it's about the brutal reality of disruption, where even the most dominant players can become obsolete if they fail to adapt. Innovation demands relentless self-reinvention. While its Devices and Services division is long gone, the Nokia brand lives on. In 2016, a Finnish company called HMD Global licensed the Nokia brand and began releasing Android-powered smartphones and feature phones. These new Nokia phones evoke the brand's legacy of quality and reliability, but in a fiercely competitive market, they hold a comparatively small share. The original Nokia Corporation pivoted successfully, focusing on network infrastructure, a critical but less visible part of the tech world. It found a new identity, but the glory days of mobile phone dominance are a distant memory. Nokia's saga, from a humble paper mill to a global mobile giant, then to a stunning collapse, is a testament to the unforgiving nature of technological progress. It teaches us that past success is no guarantee of future relevance. For a brief, brilliant period, Nokia held the world in its hands, but its failure to adapt to the seismic shifts of the smartphone era ultimately cost it everything. The story of Nokia is a poignant reminder that in the relentless march of innovation, even the mightiest can fall if they fail to grasp the future's changing winds.